America builds more pickup trucks than any country on earth, and in 2026, the worst one ever tested by Consumer Reports just rolled off a Michigan assembly line. Surprised. It's not a used truck, it's not an old design. It's brand new, fully loaded, and it's failing at a rate CR has never recorded before. An owner-operator in eastern Ohio financed his at $68,000, and within 4 months the battery was dead, the dash was blank, and the truck wouldn't start in his own driveway. Size. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly which trucks are quietly bankrupting the men who trust them, and why the newest trucks are now the riskiest ones on the lot. Every year, roughly 250,000 new full-size and heavy-duty pickups are sold to buyers who plan to keep them for a decade or more. In 2026, a growing share of those buyers are finding out, usually within the first year, that the truck they bought is not the truck their father drove. The Ohio owner-operator didn't buy the Ram on a whim. He cross-shopped it against a Silverado for 6 weeks, read the brochure on the twin-turbo Hurricane engine, and believed the marketing. More power, better mileage, still a Ram. 8 months and $4,100 in warranty-covered repairs later, he was borrowing a neighbor's truck to make a delivery. The villain here isn't a single bad part. It's a system. Modern trucks have become rolling computers, wired with proximity keyless entry, always-on infotainment processors, and dozens of small control modules that never fully power down. That parasitic draw is quiet, invisible, and it's draining batteries overnight in driveways across the country. Layer that electrical complexity on top of a brand-new turbocharged engine still working out its bugs, and you get a truck that scored just 5 out of 100 on CR's reliability index, the lowest score ever assigned to a pickup. This isn't isolated to one brand either. The Rivian R1T has racked up at least 6 federal recalls in nearly every model year since 2022. The Ford F-150 Hybrid scored 7 points in a separate 2025 ranking, dead last among every truck measured. But this is only the surface layer. To understand why 2026 trucks are failing, you have to go back to the decision that started it. Automakers didn't just add horsepower, they added complexity. Engineers chasing towing numbers and EPA ratings with smaller, harder-working engines wrapped in more electronics than the trucks that came before them. Ram's engineers replaced the old, naturally aspirated V8 with the Hurricane twin-turbo inline-6. On paper, it was a win. In practice, owners are reporting melting catalytic converters and coolant leaking directly into the intake. A failure mode that ends in a blown engine, not a repair bill. 3 words. Then pause. Engine. Just. Failed. Ford took a different road with the F-150 Hybrid's Power Boost system, chasing towing capacity and fuel economy at the same time. The result is a hybrid battery pack, a 10-speed transmission, and an electrical architecture layered on top of each other. 3 complex systems that all have to work perfectly, every single time. They don't. Federal regulators opened an investigation into roughly 1.3 million Ford pickups after 138 owners reported sudden, unwanted downshifts at highway speed. Meanwhile, GM built the Sierra 2500 HD and the Silverado 2500 HD on the same engine, the same transmission, the same frame. And somehow the Sierra still scores worse. Same hardware, different outcome. But here's what most people get wrong. Most buyers assume reliability failures are random. Bad luck. One defective unit off the line. The data says otherwise. These are systemic failures built into the engineering decisions before a single truck reached a dealership. Start with the money. A 2026 Ram 1500 with the Hurricane engine starts around $45,000 and climbs past $68,000 loaded. The same price range as a modest house down payment in most of the Midwest. When that truck needs an engine replacement outside the powertrain warranty, the repair bill can run $9,000 to $14,000, more than a third of what many American households have in total savings. The Rivian R1T tells a similar story from a different angle. Its 12-volt auxiliary battery failures don't just leave you stranded. They can disable the entire vehicle, requiring a full wiring harness and battery replacement that can run into the thousands. That's not a repair. That's a truck that stops being a truck. Resolving forward reference 2. The villain system isn't one manufacturer cutting corners. It's an entire industry racing toward electrification and turbocharging before the reliability engineering caught up. Toyota, long the gold standard for durability, hasn't escaped it either. The redesigned Tundra, now 4 years into its new turbocharged V6 platform, still hasn't reclaimed the reliability crown it held for 2 decades. Owners report hard, rough shifting and transmission behavior that Toyota's engineers are still chasing down. Here's the counterintuitive turn. Buying the newest truck on the lot used to be the safe choice. In 2026, it's the riskiest one. The trucks with the longest production history, older platforms, simpler engines, fewer control modules, are now outperforming brand new redesigns in almost every reliability category. The GMC Sierra HD and Chevrolet Silverado HD share an identical drivetrain, yet GMC owners report a measurably worse ownership experience, proof that even hardware isn't the whole story. Assembly quality, software calibration, and dealer-level fixes matter just as much as what's under the hood. For a buyer financing at today's rates, a $68,000 truck with a 72-month loan means a monthly payment north of $1,100 before insurance, before fuel, before a single repair. If that truck spends 6 weeks in the shop during its first year, as some Rivian R1T owners report, that's 6 weeks of paying for a truck sitting on a service lot, not a truck earning its keep on a job site. If you've ever looked at a brand new truck on the lot and felt a flicker of doubt you couldn't explain, you were right to feel it. The instinct that newer isn't always better isn't nostalgia. It's pattern recognition, and in 2026, the data backs it up. What most people don't realize is that Consumer Reports' scoring isn't based on a handful of test vehicles. It's built from real-world feedback from roughly 380,000 owners. That means the failures you're hearing about aren't outliers. They're the average experience for thousands of people who trusted the badge on the hood. Resolving the final forward reference, the Ohio owner-operator eventually traded the Ram in at a loss of nearly $11,000 against what he still owed for a used, previous-generation truck with a simpler drivetrain and half the electronics. He told the dealer he wanted nothing the truck could think for itself. Watching this video puts you ahead of the buyer standing on that lot today, still reading the brochure instead of the recall history. Which brings us to what happens next. The next wave of 2026 and 2027 trucks are already being engineered with even more electronics, not less, more sensors, more software, more systems that have to work perfectly every time you turn the key. The manufacturers know the failures. The recalls are public record. The only question left is whether the next buyer walking onto that lot finds out before he signs or after.